Okay, so I've been thinking a lot recently about my first labour and how I want things to go in my second labour, my preferences, everything. I've kind of been looking back and thinking, that's what I had planned, that's how it went, and kind of trying to draw bits and pieces from each experience, the experience that I've already had and the experience that I'd like to have going forward. Having said that, birth is completely different every time, I imagine, and you can plan and you can have preferences, but be completely prepared for those preferences to go out the window. And I totally am. A lot of my preferences went out of the window with Juno, and in that moment I didn't even think about those preferences or think about them going out the window. I was just so focused on the mission that it didn't even cross my mind that things weren't going to plan. The labour and delivery was really straightforward and really easy. Easy is not the word to use. It was not easy. What did I mean to say? The labour and delivery was really it was straightforward in the sense that it was quite textbook. It was quite quick. There wasn't any intervention for the whole labour and delivery. I did have a 2nd degree tear, so I had to have stitches. So there was intervention after she had been delivered, but not during labour and delivery. There was no intervention, which I was really grateful for. It's definitely something that I wanted to avoid, and something that I want to avoid in my next labour and delivery. So I very quickly touched on a little bit of my labour and delivery story with Juno then. Juno was born on the 7th of February. She weighed 10 pounds 8, and my whole labour, from the first surge that I had to the moment that she was delivered, was just over 5 hours, which is pretty fast, especially for first time parents, first time mums, like delivering babies. It's pretty quick. I believe that I did a few things that kind of aided that and helped that, and I will do those things again and I'll talk you through those. But, like I said, every labour, every delivery is different. I have heard from my midwives that they think, and it's quite common, that second babies come quicker, which is interesting to say the least. So I want to be prepared and plan for that. But I've also got mum friends and heard from other mothers at playgroups, etc., that have had babies, second babies, third babies, that they came slower and that their delivery was much longer and, much more one thing than the other. So I think it's just kind of preparing for every eventuality. And I personally think that being prepared and knowing what could happen, knowing what drugs are available to you, everything like that, knowledge is power and helps you make informed decisions in the moment and helps me feel in control, which is a huge thing because it's really easy to lose control during labour. I definitely, probably only the last kind of 10 minutes were my moments where I was like, I'm not in control anymore. I can't do this. This is really hard. This is really tough. Like tapping out, I'm done. But I had the most amazing midwife and my partner Phil saying, she's coming, she's right there, we can see her. You've only got a few more pushes left, like you can do this. And I did it, of course I did it. I wasn't going to get a cesarean when she was already crowning. But at that point was the moment that I was like, I'm done. I can't do this anymore. I could talk about my labour with Juno and delivery and just babies and pregnancy in general for ages. So I'm going to cut myself off there and get straight into it, because otherwise I will be chatting for hours and you guys probably don't want to see that. So let's get straight into the video. So let's start off with a little bit of chat about drugs. I plan, and my preferences are to have an unmedicated birth with gas and air if needed. I used gas and air for the last kind of 10 to 15 minutes of my delivery with Juno. I don't know if it did anything. It was still really intense, it was still really powerful, But if I hadn't have had it, would it have been more intense or more powerful? I don't know. So I'm going to just try and, you know, do it how I did it last time. And if I need the gas and air, then I'll go for it. Go for the gas and air. So that's the plan with drugs. If I need intervention, you know, if I'm in a lot of pain, if I don't think I'm in control or I can't manage the experience anymore, then I have absolutely no problem with taking the advice of the professionals and having pain relief. I literally do not care. It just so happened that my delivery with Juno, I didn't feel as though I needed it. I also didn't really have the time to need it. Whereas this time, you know, if it's a lot slower and a lot longer and I'm in pain for a lot longer, then I might have an epidural, I might have pethidine, any other kind of drugs. I actually need to do a bit of a refresh and read a couple more books to kind of refresh my mind on the drugs that are available. But I never say never, is what I'm saying. I would love to be able to do it unmedicated like I did with Juno. If I can't, if I don't feel like I can, that is fine. Every birth is natural, and whether you give birth medicated or unmedicated, you still gave birth. Whether you give birth vaginally or cesarean, you still gave birth. So it doesn't really bother me at all in which way the baby comes into the world and what drugs are used. My preference is that I do it unmedicated, but I can let that go quite easily. So that's how I stand on drugs. Those are my preferences, and that's my plan for that part. So birthing positions, let's touch a little bit on birthing positions. Last time I was upright, forward and open, pretty much as the hypnobirthing suggests, almost for my whole labour. I genuinely, once the surges had kind of got to 3 and 10, the 3 and 10 mark, they were quite intense and I couldn't sit down. I couldn't lay down. I just had to stand, sway from side to side. I stood in the shower for ages. The warmth of the shower on me just was so relaxing, so calming. So birthing positions, well, that was labour positions. So that was early labour. I was labouring downstairs, kind of standing, like rolling around on the ball a little bit. But once it ramped up, I was just stood up, and that was how I laboured. Delivery was slightly different, so I got into hospital and straight into the birth pool and delivered Juno, well, laboured on kind of, I guess, on all fours, like holding the edge of the bath or like that and the edge of the bath. That was how I laboured for like the last 45 minutes. And then actually, when I was delivering her, the midwife, I'm not too sure why, but the midwife kind of spun me round so that I was facing forward. It might have been so that I could like bring her up onto my chest. But I guess actual moment she was born, I was kind of leant against the back of the bath, facing forward. So that was that. And hopefully I plan to do a similar thing. Definitely lots of kind of upright, forward and open motions, like moving around, swaying around a lot. Found that really helped. I can't imagine that I'll want to be laying down or sat down much, but we will see. This could be a totally different delivery, and if it is, that is cool. We'll just go with the flow in the moment. So, labour environment, this one always makes me laugh because I read loads of hypnobirthing books last time, and I'm going to refresh my mind. But I had LED candles, I had room spray, I had my pillows from home that I love, I had my birth affirmation cards, you know, things that really brought me peace, really made me feel calm. I wanted to bring those bits to the hospital, so I felt like I was in my own environment and it was really peaceful and delicious, and none of that happened. I literally didn't care. I remember Phil asking me, we also had a speaker to play like chill vibes music. We got into the hospital, I got straight into the birth pool, and I remember Phil saying to me, like, do you want me to turn the lights off? Do you want me to get the candles out? Like, he was like, what, do you want some music on? And I was like, no, I don't care. I literally, those parts of my preferences, which I thought would have been quite meaningful and quite important to me, things that I wouldn't really want to give up on, they flew out the window straight away, which is fine. I will probably plan in a similar way to have a similar labour environment, because I do believe if I had had more time in hospital and laboured in hospital, like in the birth pool, it would have been lovely to have, you know, some LED candles and some music, but I didn't have the time. So I'm going to plan as if, you know, maybe I will have the time and take those things with me just in case, because, you know, if we get there and it does take hours and we are there for a really long time, I might wish that I had those things. So I'm going to take them, but if they don't come out of the bag, that is fine. They didn't last time and they might not this time. So that's what I'm planning with the labour environment. A lot of the things that I've kind of spoken about, like labour environment, birthing positions, all of that stuff is all part of hypnobirthing. I did quite a lot of hypnobirthing, like I mentioned, and I will definitely be using the techniques that I learnt again. So one of the main things is the breathing technique. I found it really useful. It made me feel really calm, made me feel really in control right up until the last moment. And I really can't recommend hypnobirthing enough if you want to. I mean, for anyone, even if you're planning an elective cesarean, I think it would still be really beneficial to do hypnobirthing and read about it and do a course if you want to. Another part of hypnobirthing that I used was like affirmation cards. I listened to positive birth affirmations, and what else did I do? Just like the regular up breathing, down breathing, like practicing all of that. I believe that those things really helped in me having kind of the birth that I had. I just felt really calm and really in control. And even when, you know, we were still at the house and Juno was coming, I still felt pretty in control and calm and could make decisions. So that is something that I'm definitely going to do again. I will definitely refresh my mind with the hypnobirthing. I think they do a refresher course with the hypnobirthing company, but yeah, I'm definitely going to do that again and can't recommend it enough. One thing I would like to do differently with the hypnobirthing is they kind of, with my birth with Juno, I definitely pushed and pushed and pushed with every inch of my being to get her out. And I think maybe that had quite a big impact on my recovery and could have caused the second degree tear. No one has any way of proving that, but I had read information saying that, you know, if you control your breathing, it kind of slows down the process of them coming through the birth canal, and therefore you're less likely to tear. So something that I would really like to try and do this time is, you know, push for a smaller amount of time and really try and like, because it's just so instinctual to like push with those contractions. But if you can control, like if I can control that sensation and kind of like breathe through it and breathe down, maybe that will reduce tearing risks. Who knows? So yeah, that is something that I'd really like to try and do this time. Not push like quite as much, but we'll see. Might have to push for longer, you never know. Might not tear, might tear even worse, might tear again. Whatever happens, happens. So lastly, just a couple of things that I would like to do differently, like on a whole. I've mentioned it a couple of times. I did have a second degree tear with Juno, and I do feel like I could have prepared my body more for the experience that it was about to go through. There's certain things that you can do, perineal massage, there's like machines that you can get that help to, there's like a balloon I think that helps to like stretch the perineum muscle, so that it's basically the perineum that tears, which is the muscle between your vagina and your bottom. And yeah, I would really like to try and avoid a second degree tear. I know it's quite unlikely. I think if you've torn before, then you're quite likely to tear again, but it doesn't happen to everyone. And because, you know, your body has done it before, you know, it might not happen again. But basically what I'm saying is I'm going to physically prepare my body a lot more than I did last time, just because I think that having the 2nd degree tear made my recovery quite difficult, and it would have been a lot easier if I hadn't have had to have those stitches. And also, like, just after I gave birth to Juno, I had her with me for a really long time, probably about an hour, but then, you know, I had to go into theatre and have those stitches, and she wasn't with me at that point, and you know, it would have been quite nice to have her there. And I do think about that sort of, that 45 to hour period where she was just kind of not on her own because she was with Phil, but she wasn't with me, and I would have liked that. So if I can reduce that happening in any way, I'm totally going to. So that's the plan with the old vagina. And lastly, I've probably touched on this a little bit as well, I think I would probably like to have a little bit more time in hospital, so it doesn't feel so dramatic and rushed. We kind of got into hospital last time and I had a very, very quick examination and was kind of a bit like, guys, you don't need to examine me, this baby is coming. And it was, they examined me and they were like, okay, this baby's coming. And within 45 minutes of us being there, she'd been born, which in some ways was brilliant because I didn't have to, you know, I laboured at home, which was really nice. It's something that I really wanted to do. But if we had been in hospital, even for an hour longer, it might have just been quite nice to really go into that transitional period, in the pool, surrounded by, you know, medical professionals, and Phil wasn't so, you know, he would have had more time to come around to it. It was all just very like, bring the bags in, drop the bags, get in the pool, birth the baby. It happened very quickly, which, I'm mega grateful for. And I imagine it will probably happen quite quickly this time as well, but yeah. So overall, definitely going to be hypnobirthing, and you definitely should if you're, you know, preparing for your 2nd labour, your 1st labour, whatever. It's so beneficial to do hypnobirthing and I really recommend it. And yeah, I'm just going to try and enjoy the experience as much as possible. I actually did really enjoy giving birth to Juno and labouring. It's such a privilege and I loved bringing her into the world, and I can't wait to do it again and to see how different it will be, how different this baby will be. It's just mega exciting. So a bit of a waffly video from me. I hope you enjoyed it, and I'll see you next week for my weekly upload. Lots of love. Bye.